I had a threesome with my sister and her husband while on vacation. So a bit of backstory, my sister and I have always been really close. Growing up, we did everything together and even shared a room until we were in high school. We were each other's confidants and best friends. We could talk about anything and everything, so it was only natural that we would eventually start talking about our intimacy lives. Neither of us has ever been shy about our sexuality and we've always been open to trying new things. We've even had a few threesomes in the past, but they were with strangers we met at the club or through online apps. It was fun, but there was always something missing. That all changed when my sister got married to her husband, Mark. Mark is a great guy and he and my sister are perfect for each other. They have a great relationship and are both very open-minded when it comes to intimacy. We've become good friends over the years and have hung out just the three of us on numerous occasions. We've joked around about having a threesome before, but it was always in a lighthearted way. Well, last year my sister and Mark invited me to go on vacation with them to Mexico. They said it would be fun to get away for a week and I jumped at the chance. It sounded like a great opportunity to relax and unwind after a busy few months at work. Plus, who could turn down a free trip to Mexico? The first few days of the trip were amazing. We lounged by the pool, went snorkeling, and drank way too many margaritas. My sister and Mark seemed happier than ever and I was just happy to be along for the ride. One night, after dinner and drinks, we were back in our hotel room getting ready for bed when my sister made a joke about having a threesome again. We all laughed it off, but then my sister looked at me and said, "No, but seriously, would you ever want to do it?" I was taken aback, but also intrigued. I had always been attracted to my sister and the thought of being intimate with her. And her husband was incredibly exciting. I looked at Mark and he had a big smile on his face. I could tell that he was just as turned on by the idea as I was. After a few moments of hesitation, I said yes. My sister and Mark were ecstatic and we immediately started making out. It was incredible. We took turns going down on each other and then Mark effed my sister while she ate me out. Then my sister went down on me while Mark effed her from behind. We switched positions a few more times before all three of us came in a glorious climax. Afterwards, we collapsed onto the bed in a sweaty heap and cuddled until we fell asleep. The next morning, we woke up feeling a bit awkward, but also incredibly satisfied. We all agreed that it was an amazing experience and that we didn't regret anything. We decided to keep it our little secret and not tell anyone else about what happened. We spent the rest of the trip enjoying each other's company and not mentioning what happened in the bedroom. When we got back home, things went back to normal between us. We still hung out regularly and had a great time together, but we never talked about our threesome again. It became our little secret, something that only the three of us shared. And that's how it's been for the past year. My sister and Mark are still happily married and I'm still their biggest supporter. We haven't had another threesome since then, but I know that if we ever wanted to, it would be just as amazing as the first time. What's the naughtiest thing you've ever done? My college girlfriend and I were very proactive when it came to being intimate with each other. However, she lived in a sorority which meant her dorm was always occupied. Instead, she would often come over to mine. The issue with this was that I still had a roommate. He was a total geek, obsessed with grades and trying to maintain a perfect GPA, which meant that he was almost always awake late, working on projects and homework. If I wanted to be intimate with my girlfriend while he was awake, I'd ask him to study for a little while downstairs in our lobby, he'd say yes, and that would be that. However, around halfway through my second semester, I noticed that my roommate began going to bed earlier and earlier. This meant that, since I couldn't ask my sleeping roommate to nap downstairs, my girlfriend and I had to try to find other places to be intimate, which really didn't work out. Finally, we both kind of just got fed up one night and decided to have a go at it while my roommate was still in the room, since he was sleeping and all. I did my best to keep things quiet and subtle. My roommate never said anything the next day, and he continued to sleep early. So, my girlfriend and I figured that this arrangement sort of worked. We had a place to be intimate, and he wasn't being disturbed by us every night. It was like our naughty little secret that brought us even closer together, except that this secret was utterly ruined when my roommate nonchalantly mentioned to me that he had invested in earplugs so that he wouldn't have to hear my girlfriend and I going at it. Apparently, he was awake every single time. He just chose not to comment on it. I guess my true naughtiest secret is that I just broke up with the girl and never told her. It was not worth all that. Have you ever slept with a step-sibling? I had a 4-year intimate relationship with my stepsister. In the beginning, when my dad and my stepsister's mom started dating, we didn't really have much interest in each other as friends or otherwise. After a year or so they got married and decided to take the family on a honeymoon to a fairly popular beach for a week. So we have two hormonal teenagers hanging around each other in little clothing for a week. The vacation was a lot of fun. We did lots of beach things and got closer as family, but my stepsister and I really hit it off. On the last night of the vacation, my stepbrother, stepsister, and I decided to watch a movie and we all fell asleep on the couch. I don't remember when, but my stepbrother went to bed and my stepsister and I started to cuddle. This lasted most of the night until we went to bed in the early hours of the morning, since we had to be up at 7 the next day. Just before going to bed I distinctly remember saying, "This never happened, right?" Little did we know, we just started a 4-year relationship. It started out as every relationship does. We hung out around the house a lot, talked all night, maybe little touches here and there. Over the course of a year we started getting more and more intimate, and we had to hide this from 3 other, not really open-minded, people that lived in the house with us, as well as our friends, and other family. It was a hard thing to do, and in the early days we got very close to being caught many times but eventually got better. About 3 years ago we went all the way for the first time. I lasted literally 10 seconds. From then on we were like bunnies. Whenever we were together for a night, or whenever really if I'm being honest, we would sleep together. This lasted until about 4 or so months ago. And for that time we were really happy together. We talked about the awkward family Christmases 20 years from now, what would happen if our family found out, and even marriage. It was just like any other relationship between two people that loved each other, except that we couldn't tell anyone. About 4 months ago I had to move away, and building up to when I had to move we argued more and more until the day before I left we had a big argument and ended the relationship. I thought I was ready but I really wasn't. Every few weeks I would come home and visit and we would still hang out, but it was different. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, she moved on pretty well and had a boyfriend very soon after, which absolutely messed me up. I became depressed and clingy and all kinds of bad things. And since she was my best friend I told her how I felt, but for obvious reasons there was a conflict of interest kind of, and I couldn't tell her how I actually felt. One night while we were watching a movie we started to get more and more handsy with each other and eventually kissed. And she has huge issues against cheating and stuff, so she started crying and walked outside too. No joke, tell her boyfriend. Anyway, I was sitting inside and had no idea what to think, and decided that I couldn't hide this anymore and called my mom. I told her that she had to sit down for this and that she couldn't be mad. I cried my eyes out, like snot bubbles, and sobbing cried. It was really hard to do, but I told her. Thankfully, unlike the other side of my family, she was open-minded and supportive of me, and through today is helping me through this. I kept visiting every few weeks, and we eventually started sleeping together again. I thought that would make me feel better, but it really didn't. It made everything worse. I felt like I was being used. After a few visits I told we had to stop because it was killing me. I just couldn't do it anymore. That was when I found out that she was just sleeping with me because she thought it would make me feel better.
My therapist confessed his sexual thoughts about me. My therapist, who is in his late 50s, has always been wonderful. I started seeing him when I was 16, and I am now 18 as of 3 months ago. Our relationship has always been great, never unprofessional nor too uptight. We'd make jokes and create a relaxed environment while still having a proper therapy session, each lasting an hour. My therapist does freelance care, and hosts his sessions in his home, which isn't unusual for older therapists. I've had many therapists who have home offices. To make it clear, my therapist has never discussed sexual matters with me besides childhood abuse. My therapist never flirted with me and never made inappropriate comments. The few times he's mentioned my appearance is during discussion of my eating disorder, where he'd reassure me I'm beautiful and shouldn't worry about my weight the way I do. I've always felt comfortable with him, and as a little fashion freak I wear all kinds of clothes and dress up often, even to therapy sessions. Today, I went in only wearing leggings and a baggy shirt, as I'm on my period and couldn't stand the thought of wearing jeans or a skirt. Nothing out of the ordinary until we spoke of my eating disorder again, and he mentioned how attractive I am but was more persistent this time. He insisted my body was nice and that when I'd flirt with him he takes it as a compliment. I laughed, but what? Flirt with him? He's a married 50-something-year-old. I didn't say anything about it and changed the subject, and yet somehow we ended back at this same topic. He explained how once I was leaning over to show him something and my cleavage was a temptation. I laughed again, awkwardly, but he interjected. I'm serious. I felt really uncomfortable and kept trying to change the subject, but he kept going. He referenced another time where I was writing something on the dining table and my breasts pushed together were really tempting. And then he added onto it, the creepiest part to me, or when you wore those fishnets. I won't bring up the fishnets. I've had dreams about those. What? My therapist explains my 17 and 18-year-old body is tempting and that he's dreaming of me in the clothing I wear. The worst part is when the session was over he told me I really enjoyed this session. A therapy session isn't usually enjoyable, but I'm sure he felt enjoyment talking about my body by the way he periodically adjusted himself through the session. He's great at his job, but this discussion has me considering getting a new therapist. Edit, I'm getting a new therapist. I'm clearly being groomed and manipulated. Thank you to everyone who's encouraged me to report and leave his service. Additionally, this is not a bait and it's especially not a fetish post. My personal trust has been violated. I'm a repeated sexual assault victim, and he was supposed to be treating me for such. It's incredibly damaging, what he has done. Fake claims when victims come forward about traumatic and serious situations is really inappropriate, and I do not encourage you to do this to other victims. I'm thick-skinned, I will be fine, but not everyone will be. If you believe what was posted here was a fantasy post, please do some inner searching as to why you'd think that when the majority understands this was a cry for help.
Last night my 36F friend, 36M, gave me the most mind-blowing sexual experience of my life. Does this thing have a name? We were just supposed to spend this mass together, there was never anything sexual about us. While we were watching the movie he touched me, in a friendly way. I'm super chronically touch-starved, so I leaned in and asked for more. He spent good 2 hours just caressing me. I fell asleep a couple of times, but I know it since the movie restarted and ran another time. At no point did he try to turn it into sex, just gentle touches and cuddling. And I was cuddling his 2 dogs. At about 3 o'clock, Dante said that it's really time for bed. Since he was too sleepy to safely drive, he suggested I could spend a night in his spare room, so tomorrow we can have breakfast and then he can take me home. I went to bed but... no, I wanted more. So I gathered the courage and went to Dante's bed. I told him I want to have sex with him. Now to be honest, I just wanted more cuddles. So I expected that Dante would do it quickly and then maybe cuddle me more before going to sleep. Here comes the interesting part. Dante did something that I had never experienced in any variation before. He kept cuddling and caressing me while telling me the most wonderful and encouraging things. Things which we all want and need to hear. At the same time he lowered my hand between my legs and both of us were playing together with my kitty. I'm struggling to describe the sensation with my words. He was basically masturbating my brain and body and kitty at the same time. I felt tingles all over my body, several orgasms which felt like an out-of-body experience and made me lose control over my legs and back. At no point did he try to please himself. I had reached for his shaft, it was erected, seemed he removed my hand. It was erected and size wasn't an issue, so the reason wasn't shame. Exhausted I fell asleep, so now there is a 10-0 orgasm gap which I have a full intention of making right. This technique that he was doing. Does that have a name? Did he came up with that on his own? Not a single guy has done anything similar in my life. Edit, for the ones which asked, I texted him, how do you feel about me? I just got a response, get ready because I'm going to turn your world upside down. This technique shall be called Dante's Inferno.